What happens when you mix a pen maker, a YouTuber, and an Italian pen company? Well, if it's done right, you end up with a pretty amazing piece of custom stationery. If there was one color that I would have to admit an obsession with, it would probably be turquoise. I mean, that's why my favorite pen here, the Pelikan M600, is a turquoise pen. So when Figboot messaged me before his first collaboration with Jonathan Brooks and Leonardo and showed me the limited edition resin, I knew I had to have this pen. It also helped that Figboot let me beg enough to claim number 42. And anytime I get a chance to pick a number, there's a good chance that I'm going to be a sucker for it, and this pen was no exception. But enough prelude, let's go ahead and take a look at the pen, starting with this unboxing experience. This is actually my first experience with the brand, so I like that I'm getting a first-time feel for their initial presentation. First up is this outer sleeve. I mean, it's fairly modest, but it gets the job done and provides a touch of branding flair. I will say though, while the outer sleeve does say 100% Italian, that's only going to qualify for the manufacturing of the final parts, as the resin we will be seeing later came from the eastern United States. Removing the outer sleeve, we are presented with this inner box that has the company name and line branding. It's nothing special, but at least I'm not bombarded with stickers or walls of text, and the outer sleeve and this box actually do a good job of keeping the inner box from scuffing, which I've had happen a few too many times with my Sailor pens. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at that inner box. It's a no-frills inner box. There's no brand stamping or anything like that on the outside, and it's very stackable, very small, and it keeps me from being annoyed when I'm trying to fit stuff like this in my cupboard, like what happens with the Pilot Custom Edition boxes. I mean, those things are ungodly huge for no reason. Aurora, you're kind of guilty of this too. You guys can make smaller boxes for your limited editions. They don't have to be built like a tank. Box ran to side though. Opening up this box, we have Leonardo stamped into the felt lining, and I really like the black on beige look that we've got going on here. Also, this has to be one of the better felt choices that I have felt in a pen case in quite a while. Below that, we have a Momento Zero placard, card booklet thing that gives a truncated history of the company, as well as acts as your certificate of registration. Moving below that though, we have the true star of the show, and that is this Leonardo Momento Zero in collaboration with Jonathan Brooks of the Carolina Pen Company. This is the resin that honestly made this a must-buy for me, and we'll look at that in a little bit more detail in a few moments. Now, one other thing, I really like how the pen is held in here. You can feel that there's a plastic or metal clip under here, but the way they did the felt and the way they secured it into the box acts as a very good way of holding the pen in transit, so you don't need any additional packaging or foam or anything like that. This is a very well-designed box. But let's go ahead and close up the box, take a look at the pen, and be thankful that UPS didn't destroy probably my most expensive purchase of 2021. First up is a quick overview. This pen is a primary turquoise resin with copper flecks running through it. And my pen happens to be about 25 to 30% copper, which I would say this distribution with this body style is a good example of a custom pen resin done right. I would actually almost venture to say it's perfect, at least for me. I like the rhodium trim that we have going throughout the pen. I think ruthenium would have been a little bit too dark for this colorway, and I actually can't recall if Figboot and Leonardo offered it with the darker trim. Anyways, if they had, I definitely would have still gone with the lighter trim color. Speaking of the trim, we have 3 bands on the cap. We have a lovely clip here that is stiff as all get out, but this ball on the end does make it easy to get on and off. We also have a silver band separating the blind cap from the rest of the body. This is so you can access your converter and treat it kind of like a pseudo piston pen without it being a piston pen. You do have traditional access to the converter. We'll take a look at that in a second, but the blind cap is a nice touch. We also have a single band that separates the body from the section. And one other thing of note before we take a look at the nib, the section, and the converter, this pen only takes 1 1/4 turns to uncap. And I like that touch. I hate pens where I have to twist them like 2 or 3 times just to get the cap off. It is kind of annoying. But let's go ahead and move forward from that. Here we have a broad nib. This was offered in gold, but I chose to go with the steel route. And of course, I just had to go broad. I've decided that fine and extra fine and medium just kind of aren't my thing. Behind that, we've got a section that you'll see later in the measurements is pretty well done. It's a good size and fits my hand quite well. And below that, or I should say behind that, we have the removable section and converter. This converter is substantial. Like, it's one of the heavier ones I've used, and I really like that nice little touch of Leonardo being stamped into the metal at the back. It's, well, not necessarily stamped, but there is definitely logoing there, and I think it's a nice touch. But let's go ahead and get this pen stacked up against my 1911, and we'll take a look at writing samples after that. Now, if you like the size of a 1911 large, then you are going to like the Momento Zero. Aside from being 4 grams heavier, both capped and uncapped, these two pens are almost spot on with each other in the key metrics. Both come in at 140 millimeters, with the heavier Leonardo at 28 grams. Uncapped, the Momento Zero is 3 millimeters longer at 126 millimeters and 20 grams. And each of the sections are virtually the same, with the thread to flare length on each being 17 millimeters and the diameter of the thinnest part of the section being 10 millimeters. So these pens have a very comfortable and familiar feel to my normal writing experience. Speaking of the writing experience, let's break out the Tomoe River notebook and Diamine Ancient Copper and get a feel for this broad Yovo nib. Out of the box, this nib is smooth. It doesn't matter how good a pen looks, if it writes like trash out of the box, then what's the point? So for this one to be great right off the bat, that's all I can ask for. While I can also post the pen, I don't find the need to, as the pen fits comfortably in my hand with a good central weighting to it, and I'm also finding the feed to be allowing a pretty good flow rate, as Ancient Copper tends to write slightly on the dry side for me out of my other pens. Side note, I like the color combination on display here with Ancient Copper, the turquoise main layer, and the copper fleck of the resin. Speaking of the resin, I actually find it comfortable to grip, and in one of my longer writing sessions, even with the gloss finish, I didn't find my fingers losing position on the section at all. So for a first introduction to what Leonardo can do, I'd say that this is a really good start, and I look forward to getting more pens from this Italian brand, and, well, Figboot. And that's going to do it for my look at the Leonardo Momento Zero Figboot Special Edition Mark I. If you like that video, then hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and if you want to get videos like this and episodes of the Two Guys Zero Planners podcast early, or just want to buy coffee for me and, treats for my dogs, then head on over to Patreon and support the channel over there. And as always, don't drink the ink.